So the title of our event, the Sales Rally today, is the reemergence of the sales process. Back to the future. Back to the future, the reemergence of the sales process. Because we have been through, haven't we, some really significant boom times, haven't we? How many of you for a time, 3-4 years ago, thought you had died and gone to heaven? People were just coming in, weren't they? You seem so, your name is? Hi, Janet. And Janice? Jen. Like Jen Air. Oh, sort of. Okay, not the air part. Just the Jen part. All right, Jen. Where are you from, Jen? Des Moines. You sure? Okay, Des Moines, Iowa. Was it really, really good a couple years ago? How good was it? Very good. Oh, watch this. Raise your hand. How many of you in the last couple of years sold more than one home to the same buyer? Keep your hands up. More than one home to the same buyer within, let's say, a relatively short amount of time. Okay, how many of you sold more than two to, keep your hands up, two to the same buyer? 3, 4, 5. 4? And your name is? Tim, where are you from, Tim? And in what period of time did you sell those 4 to the same buyer? Whoa, were they going to live in all 4 of them? What were they going to do with them? Investors, can you imagine? Did you sell more than one on the same day to any one buyer? Oh, 2 each day over a period of 2 days. I'll bet you felt really good about that, didn't you? Hot damn, am I good? 2 on the same day to the same person. Wow. You know what? It was so good. Irrational exuberance. We were all fat and happy. And you know what? How many of us know those days are over? Now we're back to the real world. You're going to hear from Steve Wolfson today it's called selling. What do we have to do? I was in the office one time of a vice president of marketing for a large company. This was in December of 2005 as the market was starting to turn just a little bit. And here's what happened. He got a phone call from one of the salespeople in December. And the salesperson said, I've just noticed my traffic is down and I'm not getting enough buyers through and I'm not going to make my $250,000 next year. What are you going to do about it? And he looked at me, went like this, and I wrote a note. I said, tell her it's called selling. And Steve Wolfson was there. He's going to talk to us about that. You see, it's a whole different world, isn't it? And I'm going to suggest to you today that experience alone, just experience alone no longer cuts it. It's about the process. Experience without the right process is like playing golf for a long time with the wrong process. Let me see a show of hands of anybody in the room who plays golf. Okay, how many of you play at golf? It's even better. Anybody been playing golf for a long time and you don't play very well? Okay. Oh, my friend Tim. But that's okay because you sell 2 in the same day to the same person, so you don't need to play golf. All right. So Tim, how long have you been playing golf? No, how long? 20 years. And what's your handicap besides your swing? Yeah, okay. And I'll bet you're standing a little too close to the ball, right, after you hit it. Okay. So Tim, I'll bet your swing is pretty bad, isn't it? But you're pretty good with that bad swing, aren't you? Because you're an experienced golfer, right? You've been playing golf for 20 years. It makes you experienced. You see, my friends, experience alone no longer cuts it. By itself, experience alone no longer cuts it. What is that experience? If it's experience in the absence of a process, or as my dear friend and great well-known consultant Nito Cobain says, failure that results from a well-conceived process over time will be far more valuable than success in the absence of a process. That means in the face of a process, if you don't get the results you're looking for, you can fix the process. But success in the absence of a process otherwise is simply blind luck. And so it's about the process. Now let's talk about something in terms of bursting the housing bubble myth. How many of you have heard of this thing called the housing bubble myth? It's all over the papers, isn't it? Well, let's talk about it. First of all, what created the great moments that we had? We had about a 15-year period of time because if you look historically at our business as the industry, and how many of you were in new home sales in 74, 75? Anybody here in 74, 75? Where were you, sir, at that time? Burlington, Ontario. You were hit by it too. It was called the Arab oil embargo, remember? Oil went to $15 a barrel. Can you imagine? $15 a barrel. We were rationing gasoline. Remember the lines around the... Oh, wait a second. I see some of you look confused. How many of you weren't even alive in 1974? Okay. Well, it's in the history books. Ask your moms and dads to tell you about it. How many of you remember waiting in line to get gasoline? And if your license plate ended in an odd number or an even number, that dictated the day on the calendar, which you could get gasoline. Things were so bad, we had a recession, a national recession, and the housing market went in the tank. That recession lasted 16 months. Great news is we came out of it. And for the remaining 5 or 6 years after that, the market was better than it was before. But then we rolled up to 1981. We had something called the misery index. The 3 most important economic indicators, at least to our business, inflation, unemployment, and interest rates, are all in double digits. Interest rates being the most important, 18%. Who was selling new homes then? 18% interest rates. Prime went to 21. Where are any builders in the room? Do we have any builders? Prime went to 21%. So you had a construction loan at 1.5 over prime. It was a big deal. The market went in the tank. It was a disaster. Builders went out of business. Developers went out of business. That lasted about 14 months. We came back from it just great, better than before. 91, 92, a slight slowdown. Here's the important thing. For the 14-year period of time from 92 until about 2006, 15-year period of time from 2002 up till about 2002, 2004, 2005 was great. That 15-year period of time was unbelievable. It was irrational exuberance, but it was unbelievable. But here's the thing, gang. It is this little tiny little return to normalcy we have is nowhere near as difficult as those other 2 times. And I suggest to you this, and that's why I want you to pay attention to many of these speakers here today. Great strategies and skills are usually not earned or made or developed in good times. They're developed when times are tough. And so for the people that have been through 74 and 75 or 80, 81, let me see the people that have been. I applaud you, because this one's going to be a piece of cake for you. And if this is all new to you, I want you to pay close attention to what you hear today, because it's all about the process. But let's talk about what created this. What made it happen? Well, first of all, what created it was this great moment. We had abundant and alluring financing, didn't we? We had low interest rates and abundant and alluring financing. We had like 0 down, and we had all kinds of great financing. Baby boomers began to move through the marketplace in abundance. We had a significant number of baby boomers moving through the market all at the same time, 60 to 80 million, depending upon whose statistics you look at. We had new immigrants needing new homes. And according to Michael Lee, who is an expert in this subject, there are approximately 1 million immigrants a year now that are coming in that are buying homes, and about 20%, 25%, 250,000 of them are buying brand new homes, and that number is just phenomenal, and it helped us greatly over this last 15 years. We lived in a connected society. How many of you sold homes to people that were able to buy a home where you're selling that was a little farther from the place where they work or did work, and they were able to do some, if not all, of their work from home? How many of you did that? See, that opened up a whole new market. People could live in places more distant from where they work because they didn't have to commute as much. Construction and land costs increased rapidly. And as construction and land costs increased rapidly, what were we able to do? How many of you worked for builders that were raising prices like every other day? Okay, every day. Every couple of hours. Every other sale. Good. And how many of you learned to sell against that urgency? You better buy today because the price is going up tomorrow. How many of you did that? Did you sell any of the investors to after they bought? Oh, you mean they bought one and you said you better get in before the next price increase? Yeah, we use that as an urgency tool. What would happen today if we called all of our buyers and said, hey, you better get in today because we're having a big price increase tomorrow? What do you think they would say? Don't you mean a price decrease? Yeah, what's the incentive? Well, it could be the beautiful view. It could be the quality of our homes. We're going to talk about incentives later, but by the way, how many of you do have incentives? And in some markets, that's an important thing to have. You might want to make this little side note. Conversations about incentives should not be opening statements. They should only be closing statements, not opening statements. We see some salespeople, present company accepted, I'm sure, the people walking there, hey, we got great incentives. If you buy today, we're going to give you this and this and this. The buyer goes, well, if you buy really today, I'll give you more than that. And if you really decide you want to buy today, I'll give you more than that. And then the buyer's thinking to themselves, gee, if I stay around here long enough, they'll pay me to take one of these turkeys off their hands. So because an incentive must have an end date, some expiration time, and something the buyer must do. So what else did we have? Oh, we had this phenomenon. You enjoyed some of it. We had investors and flippers. It didn't used to be that flippers worked at McDonald's. And then suddenly they got into real estate investing. They were able to tie up a builder's $200,000 home, a $250,000 home, an asset for maybe 5 or 10%. So for $20,000 or $25,000, minimal risk at best, they were able to tie it up and then sell it shortly after closing and make 100 to 200% return on their investment. Let me see the hands of the builders in the room that were making 100 to 200% return on your investment. See, the flippers figured it out before we did.